Everything you think you know about reliable touring motorcycles is wrong. One bike on this list, a BMW, will prove it by bankrupting you through its brakes alone. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which touring bikes to run from and which ones to buy today. Backed by real components, real failure points, and real used prices. No fluff. 2 acts. Act 1. The 7 worst touring bikes money can buy. Act 2. The 9 best. The machines that actually deserve your garage. Let us start with the worst of the worst. Sputtering suspiciously into the number 7 spot, the Modus M ST/M STR. Produced from 2014 to 2018, this bike should have been a legend. Look at the spec sheet. A baby block, V4, pushrod, American-built, displacing 1,650 cubic centimeters. That is a genuinely unhinged engine layout for a touring bike, and it sounded like a small block Chevy going through a car wash. The problem is not the engine. The problem is that Modus went bankrupt, and when a manufacturer disappears, so does every single body panel, every fairing bracket, every proprietary part. The weak point here is the proprietary engine management system, a customized ECU paired with its own dedicated wiring harness. And both are basically impossible to source now. If either one fails, you are not fixing your motorcycle. You are attending its funeral. What makes this genuinely painful is that Modus only ever built a few hundred units total, meaning even donor parts from a wrecked bike are basically non-existent. And specialist mechanics who understand this specific V4 are getting harder to find every single year. Before you even think about handing over cash, inspect every chassis fastener and fairing mount for hairline cracks, because that raw V4 vibrates hard enough to shake bolts loose over time. Used price sits at $18,500, which is an absolutely brutal number for a bike with an orphaned parts supply chain. This one suits collectors with serious fabrication skills who want a piece of American history nobody else has. But if you think an orphaned wiring harness is bad, wait until you meet a bike so beautiful you will want to ignore the oil puddle forming underneath it. Weeping quietly. At number 6, the Norton Commando 961 Sport/Tour. Built between 2015 and 2019, this is where beautiful British boutique engineering meets absolutely disastrous quality control. The engine is a parallel twin at 961 cc, and on paper, it is a gorgeous, characterful machine that looks like it belongs in a museum. The reality, especially on the pre-Donington administration production runs, is crankcase mating surface gaskets that weep oil like they are crying about their own build quality. That is the weak point, and it is a well-documented one. What makes this particularly frustrating is that Norton, as a company, has changed ownership and financial footing multiple times since these bikes left the factory, meaning warranty support and factory backing basically evaporated the moment you needed it most. And grab a clean white paper towel before you hand over a deposit and run it directly underneath the lower split line of the crankcases, because if it comes back stained, you already know the story. Used prices sit at $13,000, which is an enormous ask for a bike that might be actively leaking before you even get it home. This one suits wealthy vintage enthusiasts who genuinely prefer polishing a bike in the garage over actually riding it across state lines. And before we keep going, if this video is already saving you from a $13,000 mistake, hit subscribe right now, because we are about to get into the electronic nightmares, and you do not want to miss those. And speaking of expensive surprises, hiding behind a beautiful badge, our next bike carries a name that is supposed to mean flawless German engineering. Yet a rattling clutch and a recalled switchgear harness could cost you more than the motorcycle is even worth. Breaking badly into number 5, the BMW K1300 GT. Manufactured from 2009 to 2011, this bike is blisteringly fast. An inline 4 at 1,293 cc, an absolute Autobahn missile built to eat continents at speed. So why is it on the worst list? Because BMW paired that glorious engine with a clutch basket that develops a nasty rattling chatter, at idle, a cam chain tensioner that wears out faster than owners expect, and handlebar switchgear that was actually the subject of a factory recall on this generation. None of that is a $50 fix either. And together, they add up to a bill that makes you question your life choices. Adding insult to injury, this generation of BMW also suffered from finicky heated grip wiring that likes to short out right around the connector, a small annoyance on its own, but a clear signal that the wiring loom throughout the bike ages poorly. Before you buy, listen closely at idle for clutch basket rattle. Pull up service records to confirm the switchgear recall was completed and check the cam chain tensioner history before you hand over a dime. Used prices sit at $4,900, which sounds tempting until you realize that number could double the second that pump gives out. This one suits high-speed highway riders who have budgeted extra cash specifically for complex electronic repairs. Speaking of Italian machines with catastrophic drivetrain failures, our next entry makes the BMW look positively reliable by comparison. Rattling ominously at number 4, the Benelli 𝐃𝐄𝐒1130 Amazonia. Sold from 2007 to 2014, this bike had aggressive Italian styling and an inline-3 engine at 1,131 cc. It looked ready to conquer the Amazon, hence the name. Instead, it developed a reputation for catastrophic alternator drive, shaft failures, paired with parts support that is basically non-existent outside of a few international forums. The weak point is the alternator shaft Z25 drive gear, and when it goes, you are hunting for parts across 3 continents and several languages. Benelli's ownership itself changed hands during this bike's production run, which means service bulletins and factory documentation are scattered across old dealer networks that barely exist anymore, turning even routine maintenance into a small research project. Listen closely for a loud metallic clattering coming from the alternator assembly on the left side of the engine casing before you buy, because that sound means trouble is already brewing. Used prices sit at $4,000, which almost feels like a dare. This one suits aspiring mechanics who genuinely enjoy the hunt for rare parts across international forums at 2 in the morning. Our next bike trades alternator drama for a 3-wheeled identity crisis that guzzles fuel like it is going out of style. Rolling thirstily into number 3, the Can-Am Spyder ART early models. Built from 2010 to 2013, this 3-wheeled machine took a heavy, thirsty, high-revving Rotax V-twin at 998 cc and shoved it into a much heavier 3-wheel platform. The result is a highway range that will leave you staring at the fuel gauge in genuine anxiety. The weak point is the electronic stability control module, sometimes called the VSS, which can trigger limp mode warnings out of nowhere and leave you stranded in a parking lot wondering what you did wrong. On top of that, the belt final drive on these early units wears faster than most riders expect, largely because the added weight of the third wheel and the extra chassis mass puts more strain on it than a conventional 2-wheel touring bike ever sees. Take it for a spin in tight figure 8s and confirm the steering sensors do not throw a dashboard warning mid-turn before you commit to buying. Used prices land at $6,800, which is not unreasonable, but only if you accept you will be visiting gas stations frequently. This one suits multi-wheel touring converts who plan every road trip around never being more than 50 miles from a pump. If you thought a thirsty 3-wheeler was strange, wait until you meet Honda's fully automatic hydraulic drive experiment that confused an entire generation of riders. Stumbling awkwardly into number 2, the Honda DN01. Sold briefly from 2008 to 2010, this bike is what happens when engineers get bored and decide to reinvent the motorcycle transmission entirely. A V-twin at 680 cc, wrapped in a bizarre futuristic body that looked like it teleported in from a concept car show. The core problem is microscopic luggage capacity paired with an incredibly inefficient automatic transmission that saps power you never get back. The weak point is the human-friendly transmission hydraulic pump, and when that starts slipping, you will feel your acceleration disappear mid-throttle. Honda actually marketed this thing toward riders crossing over from cars, hoping the automatic transmission would feel familiar, but the resulting throttle lag left it feeling neither like a proper motorcycle nor a proper scooter, a genuine identity crisis on 2 wheels. Test the acceleration thoroughly before you sign anything and confirm the hydraulic mechanical drive is not slipping under load, because that slip only gets worse over time. Used prices sit at $5,100, which is a lot of money for a bike that cannot carry a weekend bag. This one suits quirky, casual city riders who value attention at stoplights over any actual long-distance touring utility. And now, for the single worst touring motorcycle on this entire list, a bike so experimental it will literally cook your leg alive. Roasting mercilessly. At number 1, the Buell Ulysses XB12X. Produced from 2006 to 2010, this is Buell's highly experimental sport adventure tour powered by a Thunderstorm V-twin at 1,203 cubic centimeters. It sounds cool, it rides interesting. But the rear cylinder, combined with an underseat cooling fan duct that blows hot air directly onto the rider's right thigh, radiates so much heat that long rides feel like a slow roast. The weak point, and this is a serious one, is the frame-integrated fuel cell, meaning the frame itself doubles as the gas tank, which is vulnerable to structural total loss from something as simple as a basic tip-over in a parking lot. It genuinely does not help that Buell as a brand shut down not long after this bike's run ended, meaning factory support disappeared, right as owners were figuring out these heat and structural quirks, leaving the aftermarket to solve problems that the factory never got around to. Start the bike up and confirm the massive cooling fan actually kicks on, then check the plastic frame pucks for hidden structural dings underneath before you even think about test riding it. Used prices sit at just $3,400, the cheapest bike on this entire list, and now you know exactly why. This one suits die-hard American mechanical collectors who genuinely do not mind an intense cabin heat situation on every single ride. That is the worst of the worst, 7 bikes that will test your patience, drain your wallet, and possibly roast your thigh in the process. But do not close this tab just yet, because everything is about to change. We are flipping the script completely, walking away from wiring nightmares and orphan parts bins, and stepping into a world where the engineering actually works the way the brochure promised. Get ready, because these next 9 bikes are proof that a used touring motorcycle can be fast, clever, and genuinely bulletproof, all without needing a second mortgage. Cruising quietly into number 9, the Honda Pacific Coast PC800 late production. Sold from 1994 to 1998, this bike looks like nothing else Honda ever built, and that is exactly the point. A V-twin at 800 cubic centimeters, wrapped in bodywork so smooth and enclosed, it looks like a small car decided to become a motorcycle. The standout part is the integrated top-loading rear trunk bay, a genuinely car-like feature. Decades before touring bikes figured out weatherproof storage was a good idea. This is a deeply underrated machine with near zero mechanical maintenance needs, perfect for someone who just wants to commute without drama. Honda reportedly lost money on every single unit sold because the enclosed bodywork was so expensive to engineer and produce, which is a fascinating footnote considering it is now one of the cheapest bikes on this entire list. Pop open the hydraulic trunk lid, hinges before you buy and verify. The weather seals are still intact and watertight, since dried out seals are the main age-related issue here. Used prices sit at just $2,900, an absolute steal for this kind of utility and reliability. And this one suits daily commuters and pragmatic minimalist tourers who want unmatched practicality wrapped in classic retro charm. If a trunk-equipped Honda impressed you, wait until you see what BMW did with front suspension geometry that eliminates brake dive almost entirely. Diving nowhere. At number 8, the BMW K1300S with factory touring luggage. Built from 2009 to 2016, this is the sportier cousin of that ABS nightmare we covered earlier. And thankfully, it dodges most of those issues. The inline-4 engine displaces 1,293 cubic centimeters, and it is an ultra-stable ballistic missile that somehow combines low-slung, high-speed aerodynamics with surprisingly relaxed ergonomics for cross-country sprints. The standout part is the dual-lever front suspension arrangement, a completely different front-end geometry from telescopic forks that keeps the chassis remarkably flat under hard braking. What is genuinely impressive is that this same basic engine architecture found its way into BMW's four-wheeled machinery years later. A rare case of a motorcycle engine influencing automotive engineering rather than the other way around. Let the bike idle and listen for a smooth hot idle to confirm the fuel rail and airbox pressure sensors are not screaming for calibration. Used prices land at $6,800, an absolutely reasonable number for Autobahn-bred engineering. This one suits solo riders who want to cross entire countries at aggressive speeds with minimal fatigue. Before we get into the second half of the best list, drop a comment below telling us which bike on this list you would actually park in your own garage, because we genuinely read every single one. Next up, a hyperbike engine wearing a completely different disguise. Launching violently into number 7, the KTM 1290 Super Duke GT, produced from 2016 to 2024. This bike is essentially a track weapon wearing a touring disguise. The V-twin engine displaces 1,301 cc, and it delivers terrifyingly fast acceleration while still packing factory hard bags and cruise control, which feels almost unfair. The standout part is the WP semi-active suspension control unit, which adjusts damping on the fly depending on load and road surface. KTM shares this basic V-twin platform across several of their naked and adventure bikes, meaning parts availability and mechanic familiarity are far better than the exotic-looking bodywork might suggest, a genuinely reassuring detail for long-term ownership. Shake the rear wheel horizontally and aggressively before you buy to check the single-sided swing arm rear hub assembly for play, since that joint sees enormous strain under KTM's brutal acceleration. Used prices sit at $11,200, a fair number considering the sheer performance ceiling packed into this machine. This one suits hardcore sport riders who want to cross 3 states in a single day at genuinely blistering velocities. Speaking of physics-defying engineering, our next entry adds an entire extra wheel to the front end. Leaning confidently into number 6, the Yamaha Niken GT. Sold from 2019 to 2023, this is possibly the most visually confusing bike ever built, and once you understand why, it makes perfect sense. The inline-3 engine sits at 847 cc, but the real story is the front end. The standout part is the leaning multi-wheel, or LMW quad fork assembly, giving this machine 2 front wheels that lean together through corners. The result is unmatched wet weather cornering grip on mountain passes that would send a regular touring bike sliding into a ditch. Yamaha originally tested this leaning multi-wheel technology on a smaller displacement concept bike years before the Niken ever reached showrooms, which explains why the final production geometry feels so refined rather than experimental. Inspect all 4 front fork seals for leaks before you buy and check the linkage joints for any play, since more forks simply means more places for something to wear out. Used prices sit at $9,800, a genuinely fair ask for physics-defying grip. This one suits all-weather alpine tourers who refuse to let heavy rain slow their pace down. Our next bike takes a similarly bold engineering swing, except this time it is aimed directly at the wind itself. Deflecting effortlessly. At number 5, the Moto Guzzi V100 Mandello. Built from 2022 to 2026, this bike seamlessly blends over a century of Italian architecture with genuinely futuristic aerodynamic thinking. The transverse 90-degree V-twin engine displaces 1,042 cc, and the standout part is a world-first feature: the adaptive aero winglets, small motorized flaps on the tank that deploy automatically to deflect wind away from the rider at speed. That is not a gimmick. That is genuinely clever wind management most manufacturers have not even attempted. This engine also marks the first liquid-cooled longitudinal V-twin Moto Guzzi ever put into production, a genuinely significant shift after decades of air-cooled architecture, and it manages to modernize the platform without losing that classic Guzzi rumble. Cycle through the dashboard menus before you buy and verify the motorized windscreen and tank winglet servos actuate smoothly, since these are new mechanisms with limited long-term data. Used prices land at $12,900 for cutting-edge Italian aerodynamics. This one suits modern tech-loving solo sport tourers who want striking visual flair alongside genuine function. Our next bike swaps aero flaps for suspension that reads the road before you even feel the bump. Floating smoothly into the number 4 spot, the Ducati Multistrada 1260S. Manufactured from 2018 to 2020, this bike takes blistering sport performance and somehow transforms it into an agile mile eater through pure electronics. The L-twin 𝐑𝐈𝐃 engine displaces 1,262 cubic centimeters, delivering variable valve timing that reshapes the power delivery depending on how aggressively you are riding. The standout part is the Sachs Skyhook semi-active suspension, which reads road conditions and adjusts damping in real time to keep the chassis composed. This particular generation also introduced Ducati's 𝐷𝐄𝐑 variable timing system to the Multistrada line for the first time, meaning it inherited the throttle character of a proper sport bike while still wearing full touring bodywork, a genuinely rare combination. Pull the service records before you buy and check, specifically for completed 𝐷𝐄𝐑 belt and valve checks, since skipped maintenance intervals here get expensive fast. Used prices sit at $10,800. A solid number for this level of sport touring sophistication. This one suits fast-paced, asphalt-focused tourers who want sharp handling without sacrificing comfort on longer hauls. Our next entry swaps Italian sport DNA for full-blown American luxury, with a touchscreen the size of a small tablet. Cruising luxuriously into number 3, the Indian Pursuit Premium. Built from 2022 to 2026, this is a bike that earns every bit of that $21,000 price tag. The Power Plus V twin engine displaces a massive 1,768 cubic centimeters liquid-cooled, and it effortlessly outperforms older air-cooled American touring platforms in both raw speed and thermal comfort on hot days. The standout part is the Ride Command 7-inch touchscreen infotainment hub, controlling everything from navigation to suspension settings from one central screen. This Power Plus engine was actually developed with input from Indian's parent company's off-road racing program, which explains why a bike this large still manages to pull with genuine urgency rather than just lumbering along like older cruiser-based tourers. Load up the bike with full luggage before you buy and check the electronic rear shock preload operation directly through the digital screen, confirming it actually adjusts. Used prices land at $21,000, easily the most expensive bike on this entire list. This one suits premium transcontinental riders demanding the absolute peak of modern American luxury touring. Our next bike is Italian, exotic, and somehow makes an 800cc engine feel like a genuine luxury statement. Carving elegantly into number 2, the MV Agusta Turismo Veloce 800. Sold from 2014 to 2024, this bike is an exotic, jaw-dropping piece of Italian sculpture that somehow also happens to be a legitimately sharp-handling, high-speed bagger. The inline-3 engine displaces 798 cubic centimeters, and the standout part is a genuinely unique engineering choice: the counter-rotating crankshaft, which spins opposite to the wheels to reduce gyroscopic effect and make the bike feel lighter and more agile than its spec sheet suggests. This same triple-cylinder architecture has also found its way into MV Agusta's Supersport lineup, which tells you everything about how serious this touring bike's underpinnings actually are underneath all that Italian bodywork. Hook up a high-quality battery tender before you buy and confirm an immediate clean dashboard initialization, ruling out any lurking voltage gremlins in the electrical system. Used prices sit at $8,900 for genuinely exotic engineering most riders will never experience. This one suits wealthy sport riders who require luxury luggage without sacrificing elite track-bred handling. If you are still on the fence about which bike belongs in your garage, hit that like button right now, because it tells us exactly which format to keep building for you. And now, the single best touring motorcycle on the entire used market today, triumphing quietly. At number 1, the Triumph Sprint GT 1050. Produced from 2010 to 2014, this bike is a heavily overlooked, character-rich triple that deserves far more recognition than it gets. The inline-3 engine displaces 1,050 cubic centimeters, and it comes packing a genuinely massive 62-liter factory luggage set alongside supreme highway stability that rivals bikes costing twice as much. The standout part is the single-sided swing arm assembly, a design choice that looks exotic and also makes rear-wheel removal dramatically simpler for maintenance. This triple-cylinder engine shares its fundamental architecture with Triumph's naked speed. Triple lineup meaning the character underneath this bike's touring fairing is basically borrowed from a proper Street Fighter, which is exactly why it feels so much livelier than its touring classification suggests. Check the rear eccentric chain adjuster hub before you buy for seizing caused by lack of grease, the one known trouble spot on this otherwise solid platform. Used prices sit at just $4,200, an absurdly fair price for this much character and capability. This one suits budget-conscious riders who want solo British sports character over another generic Japanese four-cylinder tour. And that is the full list. 16 touring motorcycles, 7 money pits, and 9 genuine legends, ranked on components, prices, and cold hard verdicts, not vibes. If one of these bikes just talked you out of a bad purchase or into a great one, subscribe right now so you never miss the next verdict video, and click on the next video on your screen to keep the ride going. You don't want to miss any of our videos.